What's one thing that you could change about the whole world? How would that change affect the entire world? Well, last week at Level Up, that was a question we decided to ask. We talked about then, for an example, how the world would be a little bit different, or much different, if there were no circles. It made for some wacky discussion and answers that were pretty interesting. But our world would certainly be different with just such a small thing like no circles. So what's the one thing that was introduced to our world that made so much change that it changed absolutely everything forever? Well, we had quite a few different interesting answers that students came up with that. But the real answer is that it's sin. The one thing that introduced into our world that changed it forever was sin. We read through the passage in Genesis chapter 3, where God instructed Adam and Eve not to eat the fruit of a certain tree. It was the tree that would give them knowledge of good and evil. Well, as we know in the story, that the devil, as the serpent, deceived them, and they ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So then they realized that they were naked and they felt ashamed of that. And they sewed together some leaves and made some clothes for themselves and covered themselves up. Then they heard God in the garden. And what did they do? They hid. So when God found them, they said, "Well, how do you know about all this?" And they admitted that they ate from that forbidden tree. So God punished them by kicking them out and giving them certain things that would happen to us in life, that we would have to work the soil to eat, and there would be pain in childbearing. So after we talked about all of that, and we talked about the consequence of our sin, we talked about how Jesus came and saved us from those sin. And we'll be continuing to talk about those things this week as we talk about the sin solution. We'll be looking at a couple passages from Hebrews. And in those passages, it talks about what it means to be kind of perfect and how we should strive to be perfect. But you know what? We can't be perfect. We can't be without sin. Only one person can be without sin. Only one person can be holy, and that is Jesus Christ. So we're going to look up at those passages in Hebrew this coming week. Now, a quick note about this upcoming week's Level Up is that we will be having Level Up remotely. With the concerns that schools have in the local area, Hamilton County going into a crisis, schools have closed. I know Lakota is closing for a day and then having a little bit of a break just to kind of give some breathing room because of low staff. But with all of those concerns, we've decided to kind of follow suit and just have our Level Up remote. So for January 16th at 6 o'clock, Level Up will be remote. Again, we'll still meet at our 6 o'clock time, but just because we have some concerns of outbreaks going on and everybody's health, we just want to monitor what's going on in our community and kind of follow suit with what the school is doing. So we're just going to take a little bit of break from meeting in person and do a Zoom meeting. So stay tuned for a Zoom link for this weekend. But in the meantime, I have a few things that we could discuss as a family with your kids together from our lesson this last week. So if you want to reread those lessons in Genesis chapter 3, feel free. You could also read a few passages in Romans that have to do with God sending Jesus to save us from our sins. So here are just a few things that you can launch and spark some discussion as families. So do you think people today feel shame in a similar way, or just like Adam and Eve did after they sinned? Why is that? Why do you think that is? That people may or may not feel shame after they sin. The next thing that you could talk about is, in what ways do we, in your age group as kids, in what ways do you sin? And what is sin? And what does that look like for students your age? Why is it important that even though our feelings and our attitudes may not be bad necessarily, it may be okay to feel angry, but why is it important that we not act out in anger or other situations like that, jealousy or pride? Why is it important for us then to base our actions on love rather, or joy, or other fruits of the Spirit? And lastly, I think, is how do we remind ourselves daily or anytime we do something that may be a sin, how do we remind ourselves that Jesus forgives us for all of those things? So just a reminder really quick that this Sunday, January 16th, will be a remote day for Level Up. And we can't wait to see you back the following week. And so stay tuned for that Zoom link, and we will look forward to seeing your faces on the computer soon. Take care.